Hi everybody, I'm Melinda Gallant and I want to welcome you to another Cape Conversations. We've got a great show today. We're going to be interviewing, starting today, candidates for a great position here on the Cape to represent the towns of Falmouth, Bourne, Sandwich, and Plymouth up to Pembroke. Very, very important to get the candidates' take on everything. So come along, let's have another Cape Conversations. Well, here we are in the lovely studios of Sandwich Community Television on the outskirts of downtown Sandwich. And I have sitting with me a candidate for office who I personally think is pretty terrific. Jack Stanton. Welcome, Jack.
Melinda, thank you for having me again.
Nice to see you. Yeah, it's been what, 2 years, a year and a half?
Year and a half.
Year and a half for sure. And that time we were sitting along the canal.
We were, and we're supposed to be down there today.
Yeah, I know. Well, tell me about that. So everybody knows, we were supposed to be on the boat that you fish off of, correct?
Correct.
Now you're a hand on the boat, or you don't own the boat?
No, I'm a deckhand. So
you're a deckhand. So you're one of the most dangerous jobs in America, according to the PBS.
The most dangerous job, actually.
It is, you're right.
Yeah.
So we were supposed to be on the boat, and we couldn't be because?
Well, so I'm sure a lot of folks are familiar with the North Atlantic right whale. It's a very endangered species. There's a little over 400 left. And so our boat is actually testing one of the prototypes for the ropeless fishing gear. They have it in Australia, where basically you have your buoy line under the surface, and you send down a little sonar ping, and then the buoy will float to the surface, and then you're able to haul your gear. So it prevents marine life from getting entangled in your buoy lines. And so, we're fishing in a lot deeper water, roughly 300, 350 feet. And so we're testing some of this new technology in Cape Cod Bay today. So couldn't meet on the Terrian, where I spend most of my time in the past year and a half. Yeah.
So what's the name of the boat again?
Oh, the Terrian.
The Terrian. And who owns the boat?
Mark Palumbo, Sandwich guy.
Yeah.
Sandwich guy, Sandwich boat.
For a long time, Sandwich family.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like forever. Yeah. And do you like working on the boat?
I do. You know, it was very tough to acclimate to at first, but
because
I've
what
learned
did you
a
do
lot.
before? It wasn't quite this hands-on, was it?
No.
I mean, it wasn't maybe hard labor. That's hard labor.
No, very different. I was working overseas in Mozambique as a research consultant. So I worked for 4CA Consulting. It's a monitoring and evaluation and research consultancy, which works in challenging environments across Africa. So the company was founded by another GW grad.
So you graduated from George Washington?
I did.
Wow.
In 2014, studied international affairs and kind of spent my early career working in the development sector. So 2 contracts with the World Bank, and then I got a job with 4CA, which took me to a posting in Southern Africa and Mozambique.
Wow.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's fabulous. But it wasn't quite like this.
No. I was working on reports for the UN and NGOs like Oxfam, and now this is very quite literally hands-on.
And I have to ask you why.
So I moved back in 2018 as I pursued legislative office for state representative, and just out of a general dissatisfaction with the sort of political climate back home. I think politics is marked by a certain level of toxicity right now, which is very, very frustrating.
Really? Gee, none of us would have known that.
and so I was also deeply concerned about sort of the future of the place that I call home. Yeah. And wanted to get involved politically, and running for office was something I'd always thought I wanted to do, but given the sort of urgency of the moment, whether it's issues such as climate change or healthcare, housing, I felt like a lot of issues that affect the Cape were not getting addressed at the state level, and so we threw our hat in the ring. Didn't win our election, but we got some really, really respectable numbers, and we're proud of our performance.
Well, you worked hard for those numbers too, I think.
I did. I knocked
on doors.
Knocked on over 7,000 doors myself, and then I'd go out on the boat for a week, and I'd come back and I'd knock on doors for a couple of days.
Well, at least you were used to then getting on dry land for a little bit.
Exactly.
Do away with the sea legs. So tell me now, you are back running for office. And what office are you running for again?
I'm running for the state senate.
State senate?
Yeah.
And this office was held by?
Senator Vinnie DiMacedo from Plymouth.
from Plymouth.
Yeah.
And he decided not to run again.
Yeah, he got a job at Bridgewater State University.
Yeah, that's what it was.
So it was a great opportunity for him.
He had a marketing or something. It was something. It was kind of
strategic
bizarre.
partnerships.
That's
I think
what
it was.
Yeah,
He wants to work with the university in helping create internship and work opportunities for students, which is an awesome opportunity. And you know, Vinny served for a long time, so I think he said that it was his time to kind of move on and try something different. So, you know, we thank him for everything that he did, and it's a neat opportunity to serve the community. And after talking with a lot of folks who supported me last time,
I said, why don't you run?
Yeah, basically.
Great.
And we think that, you know, the issues haven't changed. In fact, when we talk about some of this stuff, a lot of the conditions have gotten worse.
Right.
And so, you know, we want to insert our voice in there and talk about what's important for Cape Codders and folks that live down on the South Shore. So.
Excellent. Well, now tell me. So, Cape Cod is this strange island, man-made island.
Keep looking at this Nicolas Cage mug.
It's a very funky mug, but that's what we are around here. It's a man-made island, and when you see it from the air, flying over it, it's like lace. It's all the kettle ponds, the salt ponds, the streams coming in and going out, and then you hear about sea level rise and all of these things, which isn't going to. You can't stop it now.
No.
So I guess my question to you about all this, where do you stand on the environment? I mean, obviously, I'm hoping you believe that there is some sort of climate change.
So, I mean, yes.
Well, I'm serious.
Resounding yes. I mean, the
fact
that, there are folks who sort of reject the science on this is just appalling to me. Over 97% of all the peer-reviewed scientific literature says that this is an existential crisis. And even in the past year, we've had this sort of cascade of reports that are coming out that, say that we have a lot less time to make a change than we initially thought that we did. And so, there was the initial IPCC report, which the United Nations put out in the fall of 2018, which said, we had roughly 12 years to take meaningful action to avoid an increase in 1.5 degrees Celsius, which would be, catastrophic for us. There was another report that came out several months later, which talked about the massive die-off in insect life, which are,
which is
a huge food source for everything in the biosphere. You have, massive die-offs of insects.
As much as I don't like spiders, but
mass extinction across the board. And then we look at some of the reports of what glacial melting is going to do in terms of sea level rise. And I saw one report the other day where scientists were studying the rates in which the glacier is melting in Greenland. And they said that the meltwater from Greenland alone is going to contribute to 1/2 foot of sea level rise by the end of the century. That's just from Greenland. So when
and
you
what
factor
does that do to Provincetown?
It's underwater. I mean, that's 1/2 foot. So that's just from Greenland. So if you factor in the other glacial melting, they're saying by the end of the century, sea levels will be 20 feet higher from where we are now. And I don't need to tell you what that does to our hometown here in Sandwich, what that does to the rest of the Cape. So yeah, it's terrifying, and I think that the state government has a very strong obligation to act while we have time.
Well, but what are they? Okay, so here you are. Let's say you won.
Sure.
Okay, and you're one of many legislators, right? So, and I know you bring bills to them and whatever, but what can be done now? What can be done, because this is just one state. I mean, it's the whole United States has the issue. It's the whole East Coast that's going to have the issue. So how do you, as a singletary legislator, what do you bring forward? What do you contribute to say, okay, these are some of the actions that need to be taken, and let's all talk about how we can start doing that.
Sure. Well, first off, there's a lot of environmental and activist groups that are really pushing for sort of like big, meaningful change at the state level. The sort of legislators up there haven't moved aggressively enough, I would argue. And I think that
what would be an aggressive step?
Coming up with some form of a Green New Deal for Massachusetts. And I know that's the term is beginning to sound trite now, because no one's actually kind of put some teeth in that and said, what does that actually mean for the state? So what I would say is that, the state government has a very strong obligation to act while we have time. So when you factor in the other glacial melting, they're saying by the end of the century, sea levels will be 20 feet higher from where we are now. And so, what I would say is that, the climate change, the threat of it actually
Yeah.
presents an enormous economic opportunity
Oh,
for the
sure.
Commonwealth. In fact, like one of the biggest economic opportunities in the history of this state. We have so many resources here which can be harvested, whether it's offshore wind, which is extremely fertile in terms of wind speeds. We have some of the strongest and most consistent wind speeds anywhere in the country here off of our shores. We have enormous research capacity centered in the Boston area with all of our research institutes, our colleges, our universities. There's a lot of smart people working in the technology sector that can help create new industries here in Massachusetts. There are also things that we need to do anyways for this state. So when you talk about our transit system, which is just an utter mess.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so this is something that we need. We need to expand out rail to disadvantaged parts of the Commonwealth, including the Upper Cape.
Yeah.
We need to modernize our rail system to make sure it functions on, is powered by electric. And making sort of energy efficiency investments, infrastructure investments. This is all stuff we have to do anyways. And
Right.
so let's put people back to work
Right.
and see if we can create incentives for some of these emerging green industries to set up shop here in Massachusetts, create good jobs for people, and reduce our carbon footprint in the process. Other ways, things that we can do, creating municipal power structures. So town of Sandwich has a plot of land that's sitting underutilized. Sandwich, Falmouth, Bourne. I mean, any community should be able to do this. Take that public land, put solar panels, put wind there.
I think Bourne has done that, haven't they, in some area, I think?
Not to my knowledge, but
okay.
they may have. They may
Yeah,
have.
yeah.
But forming a municipal power structure.
I
where,
don't think it's municipal, I think it's private.
so that public land that we all own as residents of a
And we
particular
pay a lot of
community.
taxes, yes.
Well, that would be one thing that could actually lower your effective tax rate. If you have public land that you turn into a harnessing area for energy and you sell that back to the grid,
It should
that's
go
something
somewhere. Right.
that could hopefully lower your power rates.
Sure. So, are you excited about running?
I'm very excited. It can get exhausting at times. I mean, these are very, very long days. You're trying to meet as many folks as you can, but excited to talk about these issues that
Right.
I'm really concerned about, and I think a lot of folks are concerned about. So whether it's climate change or whether it's talking about new bridges that we're going to be getting in the
Right,
future,
right.
there's a lot of really
And I sit
important
on that
decisions.
committee.
You do sit on that.
For the chamber, the big fix, we call it.
Yeah.
So exciting. So, and of course,
Finally.
everybody I have talked to, so many people I talked to said, yeah, right, they're going to get them. Well, I may be dead, but they are coming. However, they are
They said
coming.
they wanted to get it done within 5 years, which
I know.
is ambitious, but I mean,
you
we should be able to do something like that. If you look at when they built them in the first place, I mean,
1934.
it was a Roosevelt era program, WPA.
Yeah.
And
why aren't there programs like that today?
Well,
Oh well.
that's
What do
at
I
the
know?
federal level. That's
Yes,
at the
I
federal
know.
level,
I
and
know.
once upon a time we made
They may come
public
back.
and big investments in infrastructure. but-
Right. Yeah, so that's very exciting. And I mean, I think it's exciting for the Cape. Okay, so you're running. You're a single guy. You live on Cape Cod and you fish. You go. How long do you go out fishing for?
Our trips are 4 days of actually hauling gear, day to get out there, and we arrive back on the morning of the 6 days. On the morning of the 6th day to unload. So it's
Yeah.
like 6 days dock to dock,
Yeah,
we say.
yeah.
Then you have the rest of that day off. The day you unload, you get 2 days off, and then you go right back out.
You go back
so I
out
actually
again.
spent more days at sea over the past year
Yeah.
than I have been
Yeah.
on land, which is cathartic in a lot of ways. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't have cell service when I'm out there. I
Yeah.
mean, they're long days, 16, 17-hour days sometimes.
So the hard work hasn't hurt you.
No, I think it's been good for me, to be
Yeah.
honest with you. And that's what a lot of people have to do here on the Cape to sort
Right.
of survive. So
Well, you bring a unique perspective because you bring the working man's perspective. You're dealing with fishermen. They are not people to take lightly.
no.
You know, they're smart. They know their business. How do they feel about state regulations? And I mean, they must give you some insight because they know
Sure.
you're running. They're probably saying, "Well, now when you get in office,
Yeah,
you need
yeah. I mean, I feel like a lot of fishermen tend to feel like their voice isn't heard enough where
Yeah.
all the decisions are being made.
Right.
you know, I see fishermen as sort of, you know, stewards of the ocean.
Right.
You know, they care about environmental protection. They care about maintaining the marine resources, which are in effect their livelihood.
Right.
And so it would be nice to kind of give them a seat at the table where a lot of these decisions, which impact their livelihoods, are made.
Right.
So
Right.
I would, you know, really be happy to kind of represent this industry that, you know, I've really become a part of over the past 2 years since I moved home. So.
Yeah. So do you, who will you be representing? It's Sandwich?
So it's 6 towns,
Yikes.
6 complete towns.
Right.
So a lot of times the districts get
I know,
gerrymandered,
really
and so
weird.
you have communities that are you know,
Yeah.
balkanized and broken up into little pieces. But these are 6 complete towns, 3 towns on the Upper Cape, so Sandwich, Bourne, and Falmouth, and
Wow.
then 3 communities on the South Shore, so Plymouth, Kingston, and all the way up to Pembroke. So of the 5,
So Marshfield is on somebody else's.
Marshville is a different district. Yeah.
Okay.
But
My daughter lives in Marshfield. That's why.
she does. Okay. What's unique about this district is 5 out of the 6 communities are coastal towns.
Wow.
So the sort of character or identity of the district, for the most part, I would say, what strings us all together is that we are all coastal communities, and
Which is great. And visitor communities.
Yep.
Tourists.
Yep. Which have huge tourist economies as the economic base for these particular towns.
That's excellent.
So.
Are you reaching out? I'm going to use again the fishermen. Are you reaching out to the Fishermen's Association and what have you? I would think you would have a lot in common with them.
I've talked to a lot of fishermen, and you know, I met with the head of the Mass Lobstermen's Association up in Scituate a couple of weeks ago, and so there's definitely been a lot of interest since it is a rare thing. I mean, I know one of the state reps, who's actually younger than than myself, Patrick Kearney from Scituate, who's a state rep from up there. He lobstered for a little bit. You know, would do some offshore tuna fishing. He's a Mass Maritime grad.
Wow.
But I think he's the only other fisherman who's in the legislature.
Is that right?
So yeah,
Wow.
yeah. It
Well,
would be
lobstermen
a
are
unique
not
voice
to be
have.
taken lightly
No,
either.
no,
They're
no.
tough guys. So what are you going to bring? Tell us, Jack. What are you going to bring? What are you going to do? I live on Cape Cod. I live in Sandwich. I'm a woman of a certain age. I'm not young.
Right.
I chose to live here. My husband and I chose to bring our family here almost 40 years ago now. What are you going to do for us?
Yeah. So I mean, so first of all, in terms of the community, I mean, I moved here when I was 6 years old. I was educated here through the public schools. I've spent most of my life here on the Cape. And so I'm someone who, you know, has deep roots here and a deep understanding of sort of the challenges that, you know, we face here on this sandbar of ours, and also an understanding of, you know, the issues that impact the folks across the bridge. I mean, I would say that this district is actually one that makes sense, since a lot of the issues that impact Plymouth
They're both the same.
impact Sandwich. They're very similar communities.
And Bourne is on the other side of the bridge too.
Yep.
That's the other thing. You
Yep.
know, people don't realize, and Sandwiches as well. But
Little tiny slivers.
little-
Yeah.
not much. But
But in terms of, you know, what I bring, I think that at the state level, there is a certain level of institutional blockages which prevent meaningful change from happening. And when I mean that, there are lots of bills that often go to die in committee, and there's a tremendous lack of transparency within our state government. So, for example, did you know that Massachusetts is one of the states that is the least transparent in the country in terms of being able to have an understanding of what your elected officials are doing?
No way.
Roll call votes are not public. Members of the legislature are not subject to public records law. Most of the roll call votes hardly ever happen. And it's kind of designed that way because, you know, it prevents a lot of sitting legislators from going on record on how they're voting. And so, you know, what I think I bring is someone who really wants to challenge that system and wants to speak truth to power and say that your constituents deserve to know what you're doing as an elected official.
I did not know that.
And kind of be someone who's going to challenge that culture. A lot of people run for office and they make these, you know, cushy little careers for themselves. And that's not why I'm getting into this. I'm getting into this because I care deeply about the community which raised me, about the future of this region for the next 50 to 100 years. And, you know, I don't want to become part of a system that I think has not really served the residents of this community and this Commonwealth. And I very much am going to be a vocal proponent for transparency, for accountability, and for ensuring that we move the needle in the right direction on all of these issues of concern for our home. So.
Well, it sounds to me like you've thought about this a lot, and you really have, in your heart of hearts, you want this position. Is that correct or not?
Correct.
I mean, I want to lead you on here, but...
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, this is something that I deem to be extremely important for the future of this region, and I want to be talking not about what we're going to be doing in the next year, the next 5 years, next 10 years, but what is this state going to look like in 50 to 100 years? Because when we talk about issues such as transportation, when we talk about issues about climate change, when we talk about housing, we need long-term strategies in addressing these crises, and I don't think we get that sort of longitudinal approach enough at the state level.
Right.
And that's definitely something that I would hope to bring in terms of an active voice.
Sure. What sets you apart from the other candidates that are running?
I think a couple of things. First of all, I've got a lot of perspective just by virtue of sort of the way in which my career has evolved from now. So, I spent most of my educational background and early career working in international settings, and so I take a very, very global approach to how I look at issues. At the same time, I'm a townie. I grew up here. I've been working a very, very local sort of parochial job for the past couple of years, and so I really have an understanding of what regular working folks go through to be able to survive in a difficult place to live in this particular Commonwealth. This is a very, very working class district. People work very, very hard to be able to survive here, and so I think I a healthy blend of global level perspective as well as a fundamental understanding of the what regular folks go through living here, and as someone who hopes to earn their support and be an elected official, I'm someone who can offer that voice for folks.
So what are you going to do when you walk out the door? Where are you going next? Are you going to be knocking on doors in Canterbury or
No,
in Falmouth?
We're probably going off to collect some signatures. We're finishing up our collection right now, and and then I've got an endorsement interview off Cape this evening. So,
excellent, excellent, good for you.
Yeah.
So you have a campaign person.
I got a campaign
like a
manager.
Manager, that's what I couldn't think of the word manager. That's good. And so a young woman, right? And so do you have other staff or no?
So we've got a campaign manager as our our full-time hired staff right now, and then we got a whole team of folks who are on-board volunteers.
Right, wonderful, wonderful. So. Okay, so you're going to have some debates, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah. So we're in the process of scheduling a series of town halls, debates, and those will take place towards the end of the month, early part of February.
Because this election's coming up.
It's happening real fast. So it's going to be on Super Tuesday, the date of the presidential primary on March 3rd. So what's interesting is, a lot of people are going to be going out to vote for president, but this race, is going to be on the ballot as well, and so I'm hoping folks are paying attention because, at the end of the day, the majority of your tax dollars are spent here at the state and local level, and in effect, a race like this is actually more important than who you actually vote for president. And
this isn't the presidential election.
No, just the primary.
It's a primary.
So I hope folks are paying attention. It's really, really important that you have elected officials at the state level who can understand the community that they come from and speak meaningfully about what's important for their region. So I'm someone who knows a heck of a lot about the challenges we face here on the Cape, and I would look forward to serving if I was able to get that opportunity from the folks in this district. Well, I wish you the best of luck. Appreciate it very much. I am going to be talking to the other candidates well, and I will wish them the best of luck. But you're a man who knows where he's going, so I think that's terrific. And whatever happens, I think you'll bring a lot to whatever you do for sure. There's no doubt about it. Definitely. Looking forward to having a meaningful debate and raising awareness on what's important for folks here. Excellent. So, excellent. Thanks so much, Jack. Thank you, Melinda. Good to see you again. Thank you for joining me for another Cape Conversations. Jack Stanton, running for public office,
fisherman, great credentials. Take a look at him. You may want to vote for him. So thank you for joining me today for another Cape Conversations, and I'll see you next time.